tearing down the Defense of Marriage Law, taking off the books for good, enshrining married couples' right to equal protection, requiring that every state recognize all valid marriages out of state as long as it is recognized in the state of their marriage. The legislation reflects Democrats' belief in the dignity, beauty, and divinity of every person. And you may know the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell was one of my final, Chuck, I was saying this too, one of the final bills that I signed as Speaker the first time around, December 2010, was the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. So you can just imagine how exciting it is at this point, at the end of this term as Speaker, to be signing the Respect for Marriage Act. And with that, I want to yield to our former colleague in the House, a champion on these issues. Remember when we did HOPWA, Housing Opportunity for People with AIDS? So many years of service to the community, for our country, for freedom. Distinguished Leader of the Senate, Chuck Schumer.
No matter where she stands, her stature is always enormous. Wow, this is a great day. Now, for millions of Americans, today is a very good day, an important day, a day that's been a long time in coming. We are sending the Respect for Marriage Act to the President's desk. Today, the long but inexorable march towards greater equality takes a very important step forward. Because of our work together, the rights of millions of LGBTQ Americans will be strengthened under federal law. As I've said many times, the Respect for Marriage Act is deeply personal to many of us in the Congress, many of us here, and certainly to me. My wife and I are so proud that our daughter and her wife are expecting their first child, my third grandchild, in the new year. Today, thanks to the tireless advocacy of many in this room, and the dogged work by many of my colleagues, my grandchild will live in a world that will respect and honor their mother's marriage. So yes, this is about millions of LGBTQ Americans in the country, but countless other lives of children and families will also be impacted as well. This legislation is a chance to send a message to Americans everywhere. No matter who you are, who you love, you too deserve dignity and equal treatment under the law. That's about as an American ideal as it gets. I want to thank everyone from both chambers who shepherded this bill to the finish line. And of course, I thank Speaker Pelosi and Representative Cicilline and my good friend Jerry Nadler. On the Senate side, I want to thank once again Senators Sinema and Baldwin, as well as Collins and Tillis and Portman. Their work has been magnificent, and I'm so thankful they stayed the course, even when success seemed elusive. Pushing Respect for Marriage over the finish line required patience and persistence. Today, it's paying off. Most of all, thank you to the American people, the vast majority of whom have understood that the inexorable march towards equality is at the core of the American being. You made this bill possible, America. You made change happen, America. Because of you, the American people, we are taking one step closer to fulfilling our mission of a more perfect union. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is David Cicilline. I chair the Equality Caucus in the House and represent the great state of Rhode Island. And I have the privilege of speaking today on behalf of all of the co-chairs of the Equality Caucus. First, to say thank you to everyone in this room. Today is a great day and a day for extraordinary celebration for our community. For the first time in a decade, we're sending a major LGBTQ+ civil rights bill to the president's desk. And it is delivered to the president's desk with strong bipartisan votes in both chambers. That's worthy. As the speaker would say, that's an applause line. And everyone in this room and so many other LGBTQ+ leaders around the country have been such a part of this work and are part of this success. The vast majority of Americans, as you know, agree that marriage equality is settled law in this country. And with today's vote, Congress has provided much-needed security to same-sex and interracial couples who have built their families and lives around marriage equality. And we hope the day will never come when Obergefell is overturned, but the historic passage of the Respect for Marriage Act shows Congress's commitment to protecting the rights of the American people and their access to marriage equality. So I want to say thank you to everyone who's been part of this work. I want to end with a particular thank you to our Speaker, who began her career in the House fighting to help us confront the ravages of the AIDS and HIV pandemic in this country, and is at least ending her speakership with this important success. There has never been, my guess is there never will be, a stronger ally and more effective ally for the LGBTQ+ community in the Congress of the United States than Speaker Pelosi. So we thank you.
Well, I am delighted to be here on this incredible occasion, and I also want to recognize a couple of folks who have joined the stage. Mark Pocan, who's my congressman, so I want to take, as well as majority. Oh my gosh, Barney Frank! Oh my gosh! Okay, another choke up, welling up of the tears moment. David Cicilline has the honor of chairing the Equality Caucus. Barney and I have the honor of having founded it a few years back. But today we are making history, but we're also making a difference for millions of Americans. We're taking a step forward in the fight for equality and ensuring dignity and respect for all Americans. With the passage of the Respect for Marriage Act, we can put to rest the worries of millions of loving couples who are concerned that someday an activist Supreme Court may take their rights and freedoms away. We are giving these loving couples the certainty that their marriages are legal and that they will continue to have the same rights and responsibilities and benefits of every other married couple. We are telling these Americans that we see them and we respect them. On the Senate side, I think we can say we defied political gravity and earned a dozen Republican members' support for marriage equality. Many people are asking what the passage of this historic bill means to me as a member of the LGBTQ+ community. What I said to people who asked me a similar question in 2012 when I was first elected to the Senate still rings true today. I didn't run for the Senate to make history. I ran to make a difference. But the difference today is that we get to do both. We're making history and making a difference for millions of Americans. And next, let's hear from Judiciary Committee Chair Nadler.
Thank you very much. This is truly a great and historic moment. When I first introduced the Respect for Marriage Act in 2009, it was seen as fringe legislation that would never see the light of day. To be standing here now, about to send this bill to the President for his signature, would have been unimaginable to most people back then. But thanks to the hard work of the advocates who never wavered and who never lost sight of the goal of achieving marriage equality, as well as the courageous leadership of Speaker Pelosi and Leader Schumer, we are on the cusp of a great moral victory. I want to thank David Cicilline and the co-chairs of the LGBTQ plus Equality Caucus, the chairs of the Congressional Tri-Caucus, and Hakeem Jeffries for joining me in introducing this legislation in the House, and Senators Baldwin and Collins for everything they did to assure passage in the Senate. It was just reported the other day that there are now more than 1 million same-sex couple households. Many of them are raising children in loving families. This legislation provides the security and the dignity that each one of those families deserve. I am grateful to everyone who helped us get here today. I look forward to watching President Biden sign this bill into law. And next is Senator Collins.
Last but not least, right? Let me begin my comments today by thanking all of the leaders who have gathered here, but in particular, my partner, Tammy Baldwin, in the Senate. The Speaker reminisced a bit about the repeal of the discriminatory Don't Ask, Don't Tell law. And I am proud to have been the Republican sponsor of repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. And I'm also proud to have been the Republican sponsor with Tammy of the Respect for Marriage Act. When I think about this bill, I think about how much it matters to people in each of our lives, our family members, our coworkers, our neighbors, our friends. It affects more than 1 million households in this country, but each and every one of us knows someone, has a relative, or are that person who is benefiting from this bill. And that's why it's so important. It's a bill that truly will make a difference to the lives of so many American families. And that's why it matters so much. There are some people who haven't been thanked today. I want to thank the 39 House Republicans and the 12 Senate Republicans, because without their votes, we would not be standing here today. And believe me, Senator Tillis and Senator Portman and I, on the Republican side, worked so hard. On Thanksgiving Day, as I was basting the turkey, I was also texting with them, taking phone calls, to the point where my relatives and my husband said, could you please give it a break just for Thanksgiving? But I couldn't, because it was so important. I also want to thank the group of faith-based organizations that worked so closely with us and endorsed the bill. We've proven that it is not about rights for LGBTQ community versus rights for churches, mosques, synagogues, temples. We can advance both, and that's what this legislation has done today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Collins. Not only were those Republican votes necessary to pass the bill, it makes it even more special that we're doing so in a very strong bipartisan way. Thank you for your leadership, your ongoing leadership from Don't Ask, Don't Tell. Now, in case you are wondering, the bill isn't here. It's coming in a minute. And in the meantime, I just want to acknowledge some of our colleagues who have, see what happens after you pass the bill, there's all this parchment paper, there's a whole process here that usually goes like this, and hopefully it'll be just a moment. But in the meantime, let me acknowledge the distinguished Majority Leader of the House, Steny Hoyer of Maryland. Tammy acknowledged her congressman, our Congressman Mark Pocan of Wisconsin. I'm coming that. And I know we're all thrilled to see Barney Frank here. Barney, I was chatting with Barney earlier, and we said in the beginning we did the repeal of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. But before that, one of the first bills we did, and we would not have been successful without Barney's leadership, sharing his personal story when we had the hate crimes legislation, which was fully inclusive, including LGBT. They just said, you can pass this in a minute if you take out transgender. I said, we won't pass it in 100 years unless we have transgender in there. So thank you, Barney, for your leadership. Now that I see the bill is arrived and alive, I'll reverse, scale back my next 20 minutes by saying this. I mentioned on the floor Phyllis Lyons and Del Martin, pioneers, icons, and all this. I mentioned Jim Hormel, such a champion, the first openly gay ambassador of our country, appointed by he was appointed by Bill Clinton. But people say to me all the time, it's easy for you to do all of this because you're from San Francisco and people there are so tolerant. I said, don't use the word tolerant. Jackie will attest to this. Tolerant is a condescending word to us. This isn't about tolerance. This is about respect. This is about taking pride. And we all take pride. So, as Senator Collins mentioned, it was, and others have mentioned, they're all of you who made this possible. The inside maneuvering can only go so far without the outside mobilization. But I do, in closing, want to acknowledge some of my constituents and neighbors who were here 3 generations of the Dolby family. Thank you for your leadership and all of that. And now, we will sign a bill and send it to the president's desk. Mr. Schumer, will you join me up there?
I was here for the birth of DOMA, so I am very grateful to be able to be here for the funeral, and it's kind of a New Orleans moment. We are tooting our horns for the funeral, a much happier occasion than the birth. But I just want to say something very important, not just about this bill, but about the job of legislating. I was chagrined to read criticism of Tammy Baldwin before the election for not pressing ahead with this bill to maximize its advantage as a political issue. And Tammy, through her own life experience, understood what troubles this caused for same-sex married couples all over the country. And she understood that resolving those fears was much more important than any political issue. And she stood up, and she was proven right. And I hope people will now take this as an example of responsible legislating, not being panicked by people who have more emotion than intelligence on an issue. And I just want to pay tribute to one of the great legislative achievements I've ever seen, Tammy shepherding this bill through.
Elected to the Congress of the United States. That took courage to run, to win, and she's demonstrated that courage to now. Here we are. Absolute President Biden. Yeah.
That's why we did it.
How you doing, Barney?
Good.
All right?
Yeah, disc problems on both sides, so I'm not mobile. But otherwise,
Rain and mouth, are you tired? Get energy. Always did.
Yes.
I'm glad what you said about that.
oh yeah,
We got such pressure.
I know that, including
Oh, from everybody.
that's why I wanted to tell our friends about it.
That's right. Well, they have no faith.
Thank you.
I love it.
Say your remarks.